Our scripture lesson this morning comes from the Old Testament, comes from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16, verses 9 through 12. I'll get it out here eventually, but we're looking at Deuteronomy 16, 9 through 12. Count off 7 weeks from the time you begin to put the sickle to the standing grain. Then celebrate the festival of weeks to the Lord your God by giving a freewill offering in proportion to the blessings the Lord your God has given you. And rejoice before the Lord your God at the place he will choose as a dwelling for his name. You, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, the Levites in your towns, and the foreigners, the fatherless, and the widows living among you. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and follow carefully these decrees. Will you bow with me for a moment of prayer? Gracious God, we thank you for your word. We thank you for all that you have done. Thank you for your truth that comes out. We thank you for these little passages that may seem so small to us. And that as we live thousands of years later, that the context is lost. But God, in the scheme of things, you're still moving. And you're still working through these words. And you're still opening up our hearts to deepen that relationship with you. So Lord, thank you. Thank you that you're the same yesterday as you are today, as you will be tomorrow. Thank you that you give us an opportunity to celebrate. Thank you that we have this time to worship, to hear you, and to see your movement in our world. In your name, amen. So I was trying to think about a way of talking about this festival of weeks, and then it dawned on me, oh yeah, it's also Mother's Day. So how do we tie the two together? And as I was thinking about it, it's like I could do all these facts that we could have, facts about Mother's Day and facts about the Festival of Weeks, and then I was like, well, that's quite boring if I really started thinking about it. A history lesson, that could be bad. But there's some questions that started to come out in my mind, because that Festival of Weeks that we're looking at, we also know that as Pentecost. That it's the same thing. It's the same festival. It's the same reason they were gathering, and we've lost what that means over the thousands of years. So I started thinking about, well, I wonder what Mother's Day would look like 1,000 years from now. And I saw this card up there that from, yeah, and I got to think about when this was. This was like a 1940s card for Mother's Day that I found from Hallmark. And then now we're 70 years later, so we don't quite do the same drawings. We have maybe more flowers on it now, and some of the same sayings are still there. But what would it be if we went 1,000 years from now? What do you think would be the same? Do you think there would be a Mother's Day 1,000 years from now? It's not on the screen. I'm just asking you. There'll still be mothers. That's true. There'll still be moms. Maybe we'll have a celebration. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll forget why we started it. You know what? Mother's Day was started in 1905 is when Ann Jarvis started really thinking about. 1908 is when she approached her church in Grafton, West Virginia, at St. Andrew's Methodist Church, to start a moment to celebrate her mother who died that year. 1914, she approached Congress about it, and Congress said, well, then we'll have to have a Mother-in-Law's Day too, so we're not going to do that. In 1914, Woodrow Wilson signed it in as an executive order that we would celebrate Mother's Day. And that was, so now we're over 100 years, and it's changed over that 100 years, and I wonder what it would look like in the future. Maybe we will celebrate it by moving it a different day. Maybe it'll be a different time. Maybe it'll just be a brief glimpse and an overcrowded schedule, or maybe the world will slow down by that point in time. Or maybe Jesus comes back and we all celebrate in heaven. It's hard to say what it's going to look like. But as we go back into this festival of weeks that God had told the Israelites to do, this is one of those things that is supposed to be a party as well. It's a celebration of the harvest coming in, a celebration that they had gone through the growing season, that they had made it through, and that they had this moment to take care of their harvest. This is 7 weeks after they took the sickle to the first grain, which was right around Passover. That's why if you think about it, in Acts we have Pentecost 7 weeks after Easter. It's because that's when this celebration was to take place. And it was a celebration. It was a day of no work. It was a day of gathering together. It's a day to give the free will offering. That means you gave what you wanted to give. You gave a portion of what God had shared with you through that harvest. It was the first harvest, meaning it was the first, this was the best harvest, because these were the seeds that were the best that you saved from last year. They gave you the biggest crop. The ground wasn't overused yet. It had time to rest. And you gave a portion to God. And you celebrated that. They would have a feast around a table. They would have their sin offering was also given at this time. So there was an ox, there was some lamb, there was goats, there were birds that were sacrificed to God to say thank you, saying sacrifice to God for the forgiveness of sins, sacrifice to God that they had come through this time together. It was also a pilgrimage day where they went to the temple, as the temple was built later on, but before the temple was built, they came to the tabernacle. And it was a time of great tidings. Great tidings, now you sound like Christmas, another thing. It was a time of great joy and a hope that they made it through, that God continued to see them through. That God continued to give them the strength they needed to go through those difficult days, because there were probably days when they're wondering if it was going to rain. They're wondering, is the harvest actually going to come? We don't have those same problems this day, right? Most times if we're hungry, we can go to the refrigerator, or we can go to the store, or we can go to a neighbor's house, or we can come to the friendship table, or we have these opportunities for food. In most cases, we have everything at our fingertips. And we miss out on the celebrations. We miss out on that time of giving thanks, because God has met us where we are. Today's Mother's Day, so how many are going out to dinner or lunch or brunch or something like that? I see a few hands going up. So how many went up I went out yesterday then? Okay, so there are many of the other ones I'm going to ask, are you actually doing anything for Mother's Day? Because there's a lot of hands that are down. But it's that time of celebration, right? That time of we're giving thanks. We're saying, you know what, this is a special person who's done some special things in our life. Celebrating the mother of Jesus, Mary. That opportunity of just celebrating. Of having that time of opening our hearts up. And that's the important thing about Pentecost, and the important thing about Festival of Weeks. Even many years later, we'll have this, in a couple of weeks, we'll have this celebration of Pentecost, of the God's Spirit coming. And God's commitment to us. God's commitment that's always been there. Even as we look in this Deuteronomy passage, as they're walking through the wilderness and coming to the promised land, God's already setting up these celebrations. God's already giving them, planting these seeds for them to have a time to relax, to enjoy. So when we get into Acts chapter 2, we'll see that there's a crowd that's gathered in Jerusalem for the celebration of Pentecost. This is the reason why. They're celebrating the harvest. They're celebrating the time of great things. They're celebrating the time that God's fulfilled the promise and has continued to help them live. Which got me to another question and got me to thinking about another piece that at times is missing in our hearts and missing in our day. Not just the celebration time, because there's, maybe it's just me that I don't celebrate enough. I don't know about you, that there's just seems like the days just keep on going over and over and over again. But what about that giving thanks? What about that piece that says, I've received a gift, and I need to pass this gift on? That I need to share what is going on and say thank you. We're going to thank our mothers. We're going to thank moms. It used to be that today was the busiest phone call day ever. I remember not that long ago as I was trying to call Mom, and I think I was in Duke Center, and it gave me that weird tone. I never heard it before. All the circuits are busy. Please try again. So what about our celebrations? What are you doing to celebrate today? What are you doing to say thanks? And I'm not just talking about moms, your mothers. What are you doing to say thank you to those people who encourage you? What are you doing to say thank you to those people who help you get through your day? What are you doing to say thank you to those folks who stand behind you, who've lifted you up, who enhance what you do? Are you publicly saying thank you? Are you publicly saying, this is the person who helps me to be me? Whether it be a spouse, children, parents, friends, co-workers, people that have served us throughout our time together. We had the ladies' banquet on Wednesday, and unfortunately I wasn't able to be here. But my understanding is it was a great time. I see a lot of heads nodding, so I'm going to go with yes. But I also realized the folks who put the time and energy ahead of time. Kathy and Ira were here before I left for the day, and the time that they put in cooking the food and getting that prepared. Those who stayed to set up or came early to set up, and those who stayed afterwards to clean up. Those who served the food. Did we say thank you? I'm sure we celebrated it. But do we take a few moments to say thanks? As you go to a restaurant today, or maybe further on this week, or maybe you've already gone, did you take time to say thank you to those who served you? Who brought you that meal? Whether it was the best meal you've ever had or the worst meal that you ever had, did you say thank you? Because those people gave their time and their heart, not to spill, not to do it as best as they could. What about that person who does your laundry? Have you said thank you? Or that person you see every day? Have you given them a word of thanks? What about that person who spent his life teaching, sharing love, and then dying? that you may have forgiveness, that you may have life. Have you said thank you? What about the one who's given you all the gifts that you need? Your thoughts, the place where you are, your strength, the life that you've lived, have put the pieces in place. Have you said thank you? Many times we just go through the motions. We go through, this is just the way it is. And we get stuck in that rut. And we don't take that time to say thanks. To say thanks to God. To say thanks to our family. I would say thanks to my family, but one is ill, so we're in two different places today. But our families put up with a lot of stuff, don't they? Do we say thank you? Which festival is this? It's the festival of the weeks. It's the festival of Mother's Day. But wrap it all together, it's a festival of giving thanks, of being appreciative of what we have, of who we are, appreciative of those who have encouraged us, who have shared with us, appreciative of a short sermon, because I am out of thoughts. Appreciative of a God who continues to bless us.